Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to another crypto market update. I hope everyone is having a fantastic start to their week because the crypto markets are kicking things off hot. We're not only seeing the prices of cryptos across the board, and yes, that means both Bitcoin and altcoins skyrocketing back to the upside, but we're also seeing a bunch of really positive catalysts behind the scenes, and a lot of these TradFi players, a lot of these institutional players are expanding into a bunch of new markets, and it's kind of fueling this next move to the upside. So I want to break down everything that you need to know, what in the world is happening here, and really just walk everyone through this step by step. So all that we ask here is that if you like the content that we make, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and stick around for all the other videos that we have because we're constantly putting out new ones both on this channel and on the Crypto 101 podcast channel. So make sure to check that out as well. So what is happening here? Well, let's first take a look at what is going on the charts, because this is that move that I'm talking about. We're seeing Bitcoin push back up towards $88,000, $89,000. And this is a really nice move because last week we were squeezing, price wasn't really going anywhere. And now we're starting to see prices kind of expand back towards the upside. Now, altcoins are running as well. Most recently here, we've had Solana seeing some really nice moves over the past couple of days. It's up about 16% just in the last 4 or 5 days here. XRP has been another winner over the last week or two. This thing has gone almost 30% to the upside. And we're even starting to see some more mainstream altcoins like Ondo over here, which is going back to the upside. I know AVAX has been seeing some really nice moves. Ondo is up about 27% in the last 2 weeks. And then, of course, we have AVAX over here, which is up almost 40% in the last week and a half to 2 weeks. And this is just a general representation of what altcoins are kind of doing here. We are seeing a little bit of a bottom come in. We're starting to see them move back to the upside. And there's a couple reasons for why this is happening. And that's what I want to kind of transition us into here and say, hey, it's nice that we are seeing this recovery, but there's a couple of questions that we need to get out of the way. Can this continue? Is this sustainable? And, what is kind of next? What can we expect going forward here? And I think that the easiest way to describe this is by looking at 3 things: the chart and some technical analysis, the fundamentals and the catalysts, and then what is happening with the actual FUD that we've seen that brought us down into this area in the first place. So strictly looking at the charts, I think it's pretty safe to say that the crypto markets are following what Bitcoin is doing here. So the mainstream altcoin market is for the most part following what Bitcoin is doing, except in a little bit more of an exaggerated or a more volatile manner. And that's what we're seeing happen with altcoins. So I would say, hey, keep a close eye on what Bitcoin is actually doing, because I think that that is going to be a pretty big signal for what the rest of the altcoin market, for the most part, is going to be doing here. So for Bitcoin, we know this 90K area is a big one to keep an eye on. Bitcoin over here has struggled with 90K in the past, and I say struggled. It was a huge support zone for a long time. It wasn't until fairly recently, at the end of February and at the beginning of March, that we saw this 90K area turn from support into resistance. So as we are working our way back up over here, I'm keeping a close eye on that for Bitcoin and also for altcoins, as they could potentially get affected over there as well. The other things that I want to talk about are these catalysts behind the scenes. And BlackRock is just at the forefront of it all. So there's a couple of things that we've seen over here from BlackRock. They are expanding their $1.7 billion BUIDL fund. This is their tokenized money market fund over to Solana. This was before this, or I guess strictly on Ethereum. Now what they're doing is they're expanding this to Solana, and we'll get into all the details of this, but they're now projecting that with this, it could go up to $2 billion. So they expect it to grow. The other thing that we've seen from BlackRock over here is that they're launching their own Bitcoin ETP in Europe. Essentially, what this means is that they are going to be moving IBIT over to Europe and giving them access to it. They said, hey, this was massively successful for us. And we'll walk through some of the numbers here, but they're going to be expanding that from North America over to Europe and increasing the potential audience base. So let's run through this first article first, because I do think that this is really important. And there's actually a lot of really juicy material that we need to talk about in here with BlackRock expanding the BUIDL fund over to Solana. So as we initially mentioned, this was an Ethereum exclusive thing for, roughly the first year or so of its existence. Now what we're starting to see them do is say, hey, let's actually expand this over to Solana. And, with this expansion, we're expecting, hey, we could hit $2 billion by April, making a pretty substantial increase in the AUM, or the assets under management, of this overall fund. And they go on to talk about this, hey, talking about the metrics and which networks that they support and all these other things. But this is really being made possible through Securitize. We've talked about their name a couple of times here on the channel. But with this, this now makes them available on 7 different blockchains. They are going to be available on things like Ethereum, Polygon, Aptos, Arbitrum, Optimism, and now they're going to be expanding to Solana and probably even some other players in the future. Now, one of the really cool things that I saw over here, and I want to find the quote, but what they were saying is that, hey, we think that tokenized assets in this treasury market is one of the fastest growing sectors among tokenized assets. And that's why they're doing this in the first place. And so they're looking at this saying, hey, this is actually really successful. And they've also seen other players be really, really successful with this as well. BlackRock isn't alone here, as the article states, because Franklin Templeton is also offering a very similar tokenized fund that currently has around $692 billion in market cap across 558 holders. Now, this was a big deal because this initially launched on Solana, and BlackRock was initially on Ethereum. And so people are saying, hey, we have a big fund on Solana, we have a big name on Ethereum, and now what we're going to be getting is a little bit of cross-pollination here, which could probably be a good thing. It shows that, hey, Solana is still very much alive. I know people have had their mixed thoughts on Solana in recent months. If we go to the Solana chart, we've seen this thing see a little bit of a nice move to the downside, right? But what this is saying is, hey, Solana is still very much alive. These people are building on it. BlackRock's expanding to it. Franklin Templeton's already involved with it. And we can probably expect it to stick around. So despite all the FUD, it looks like it's going to stick around. The other half of this, going back to the ETP and ETF situation, is BlackRock is going to be expanding over to Europe. Now, this is a big deal. If we look at what the IBIT ETF or the BlackRock ETF for Bitcoin has done here, it has absolutely crushed it. When we look at market share, they represent anywhere from 80%. You can see this on this part of my chart over here. They're the blue. They represent anywhere from 75 to 80% of the volumes that are going through these Bitcoin ETFs. So think about that. They're 75 to 80% of all of the spot Bitcoin ETF volumes. They own about 75 to 80% of the market share. They're huge. If we also look at their assets under management, over here they represent around $100 billion in assets under management, making them by far the largest ETF provider. So they're looking back on this saying, hey, this has not only been one of the most successful ETF launches in history, but we're also accounting for the vast majority of volume, and we're the largest holder, we're the largest of the Bitcoin ETFs. Why not expand this to other markets? And that's what we're starting to see them do. Now, this is a good thing, right? This opens the doors to all the other markets that they could expand to. Hey, if they're expanding to Europe, could they expand to Asia? Could they expand to everywhere? Could we see this become a global presence through their Bitcoin ETFs? And can we have the same response? And I think the answer there is yes. And this is definitely going to be something to keep an eye on moving forward. Now, the crypto adoption doesn't stop there. I feel like it just keeps coming and coming and coming. But Donald Trump's World Liberty Financial here is going to be launching a USD1 stablecoin. Now, there's been a lot of talks about stablecoins. If you watched the actual, White House crypto summit that we had a couple of weeks ago, there's very little talks of altcoins. It was primarily focused around Bitcoin first, And then there was several conversations about how stablecoins could play a part and a role in the US. And since then, and really I'd say the last 6 or so months, we've started to see a lot of other projects talk about adding stablecoins. It looks like the regulatory environment for them is going to be getting a lot better. It's going to be getting a lot clearer and looser. And, now we're starting to see a lot of these different players talk about adding and or creating stablecoins. We started seeing it with XRP. Now we're starting to see it with World Liberty Financial. And of course, there's a bunch of other players as well. But stablecoins are growing, essentially in their popularity and potentially even in their use case. Now, World Liberty Financial's USD1 stablecoin is going to be 100% backed by short-term US government treasuries. And this is going to be the way that they do this. And it's going to be, again, redeemable 1-for-1 for the US dollar, as it is always going to be pegged, or the goal of it is to always be pegged at this $1 level without it needing to move. So something, interesting that I came across here, again, do I think it's going to be the next Tether? Do I think it's going to be the next USDC? Personally, I don't. I'm still going to prefer to use USDC and USDT. They're tried, they're true. I've used them for years, and they're just about available everywhere. So, there's no bias in something like this. It's just, hey, those are what I've used for years now. I know that they're large. I know that they're safe. And, we've seen stablecoins blow up in the past. So I like to just stick with the large caps when it comes to these things. Now, again, not that there's any bias against this. It's just like, hey, that's just what I'm used to. So we'll keep an eye on it. I don't think it'll be like the next number one stablecoin or anything like that. But a lot of these companies are looking at the benefits of stablecoins for transfers and all these other purposes and saying, hey, this just kind of makes sense if we can do these payments on our own through stablecoins, especially things like cross-border ones, and be able to redeem them for a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the time. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here is the third point that we needed to address, which was all of the FUD and the macroeconomic uncertainty and the geopolitical environment and all these crazy things, because this has been a big contributor to why all of the risk markets are essentially down in the first place, right? We've started to see Bitcoin pour off from 110K down to 76K. We've seen, of course, a lot of the traditional indices roll over 10+% to the downside with things like NASDAQ and S&P. The big reason that a lot of this is happening in the first place is because of all of the FUD out there. The FUD around what's happening with the Fed and interest rates and with inflation. And of course, the big ones being war and tariffs. And what we're starting to see here is that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We've got a lot of economic data in the last week in regards to the labor environment or the job space, and also with inflation. And now what we're starting to do is get more information in regards to the tariffs and how they could be softening or becoming more soft with this new release. And everything's responding really, really positively to this. So again, tariffs look like they might be getting dialed back here. There's a big deadline that we need to pay attention to for April 2nd. But if these start to ease up, I think that the more clarity that we get, the more that we start to see all this FUD dissipate, I think the more that the markets really can recover. And again, we're just getting rumors of this, just like little sprinkles of this on top saying, hey, this stuff could be softening up. And the markets are responding really, really positively. And so now everyone's looking for this April 2nd deadline saying, is this actually what we're going to get? And we're going to find out soon enough in just over a week here. So something to keep an eye on. Again, I do think if we start to see this FUD go away, if we start to see all of the FUD start to dissipate, then I think that the markets have a lot of room to recover back upwards here. As again, people were overreacting, and now we're starting to say, oh, inflation's actually on track. We could still hit 2% next year. That's going well. Jobs are actually doing pretty good. We're not seeing a lot of layoffs. We're seeing a steady, healthy job environment. And also, if tariffs are also going away, then hey, what is there really to be upset and nervous about? And the markets are starting to price that back in, saying, hey, we probably overreacted to the downside. So a big date on April 2nd to pay attention to. Are things going to escalate? Are they going to kind of cool off? We're going to find out soon enough. And then on top of that, there's all these positive catalysts that are going along or going at the markets. And Bitcoin still has a really big range around 90K that people need to be paying attention to. So a lot going on here. We love talking about it. We love bringing it to all of you so that everyone can stay informed. But if you did like this video, everyone, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We got a lot more content coming at you in the weeks to come. And don't forget to check out our other channel, which is the Crypto 101 podcast. You can find a bunch of tutorials and podcasts and videos and market updates that are going to be able to help you out and keep you in tune with everything that's going on. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Now, if you're not plugged into a crypto community yet, go down to that link in the description down below and check us out at on Mighty Networks. This is where we have our Crypt Nation private group, and you can get plugged in with thousands of other like-minded individuals, people who are interested in investing in the crypto space, talking about it, trading it, posting news articles, little updates about what's happening and what they're interested in. And if you have been looking for a great crypto community to get plugged into, we personally believe that that is going to be the best option for you, as I am one of the analysts over there. So again, go to the link in the description down below. Check us out. We also have a book from my good buddy Bryce Paul called The Crypto Revolution, and you can check that one out as well. It's a great way to kind of get started and get your foot into the door of the crypto space. And so we have all sorts of resources that you can get plugged into. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see all of you at the same time, same place next week.